Hello, sociology students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 5, Section 3, Pre-Industrial Societies. And we're going to actually kind of talk about both pre-industrial and industrialized as we go along in this little section here. But sociologists classify societies on the basis of their subsistence strategies or how they meet their basic human needs within their environment. And what's interesting is some of the things that you might hear mentioned within this section really do pertain to areas like world history or anthropology or such. So let's talk about these. We have our hunting and gathering societies. These typically consist of small groups of nomadic peoples whose survival is based on hunting wild animals or the notion of gathering vegetation. When you talk about the size of these groups, typically they're not very huge as far as your groups. Uh, when you talk about the notion of labor and such, both men and women have roles that they have to play, and in some cases, women do take on a little bit more responsibility because of the survival aspect of this. As societies kind of become a little more modern, you might hear a little bit about the pastoral societies. The best way to remember pastoral societies, it has a lot to do with pastures because these are societies that rely on domesticated animals to provide a more stable source of food. This idea of allowing animals to graze on a pasture might help you remember this, but uh, societies like this do permit ownership of property, including land, and you're starting to see some of the first statuses come into place. Whereas, like in nomadic societies, not there's not a lot of status there. I mean, it's all about kind of equity as far as kind of surviving and everybody's kind of relying on one another. But in a pastoral society, you're starting to see that roles and economic differences do actually exist within these societies. You might also see the notion of a food surplus, which in a way gives a person wealth, but it also gives them power to a certain degree. Okay. At the same time that you might have pastoral societies, you might also have horticultural societies. These are societies where the people, rather than um, grazing animals, they actually raise crops. And in many cases, they become very territorial and possess certain material artifacts, primarily artifacts that are going to help them raise their crops and to um, basically continue on their society. Larger of these societies have well-developed political and economic systems, and you start seeing like a division of labor. There's a surplus. There's also this concept of money that results in more statuses. Beyond that, you might start seeing agricultural societies, and part of this is due to the invention of the plow. You have larger permanent settlements that become possible. And because of that, you might actually have individuals who can differentiate when you talk about their occupations. Not everybody's going to be needed to be involved in food production. And thus, this can lead to different jobs that other people can take on. Cities begin to form around these commercial activities. You have the development of the following: you have an economic institution, political institutions, you have more social classes, there is a standard monetary system, there is probably a system of writing or record keeping, there is improved transportation and communication. You also have permanent military because you have to protect all of this. Along with that, you have industrial societies. They rely on mechanization as a means to produce their food and goods. Science becomes very important as an institution, and it fuels the technological development. Social change occurs very rapidly, and urbanization definitely is on the rise. Social relations are incredibly complex compared to that of the old hunting and gathering groups. There's an emphasis on secondary groups and achieved statuses, and social and economic inequality is reduced. And then beyond that, you have what is known as your post-industrial societies. They tend to produce services and information, especially when you talk about things that are along the area of technological advances. So technology dominates the economy. This type of society is globally interdependent. You rely on everyone, and you're looking for other nations for raw materials, cheap labor, and markets for products and technological skills. Education and science are important. People have more time for leisure activities. There's a higher standard of living, self fulfillment, and also more occupational choices. Thank you very much.